Well, folks, welcome back to Gale Force Wins. This is I always say it's a special edition, but it is. I have someone with me today that I've actually been following for quite a while. He didn't know that, but I've been doing that only because I've been in the advertising world and print advertising, then morphed into digital. This person has had his own agency and all that. Many of you will probably know him from Rogers Television. So, without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to him to introduce himself.
Hey everybody, what are you at? My name is Don-E Cody, and my friends call me DC, so now you can too.
I got to ask you, and I'm sure people have asked, when you were born, your actual name was what?
Donald.
Donald.
Yeah.
And you made it Don-E, did you not? Tell us the story about that.
The irony of being overbranded and doing what I do, right? So Donald, yes. And then when I was probably in kindergarten, they're like, it's Donnie with an IE. But then when it was grade 5, I was like, oh, we realized it should have been with a Y. But then I got in grade 8 and they said, you know, you're getting older now, so you should be Don. So by the time I got into my formative years, right, I was like, well, how many spellings can I have? Let's do one more. Because I was always a cartoonist and illustrator, drawer, right? And so I'd always sign my artwork Don-E. I don't know why I did that. So then finally I started doing it more and people started seeing it more, and then it just sort of went from there. And then eventually it became DC, and I feel better about that because it's the least issue I've ever had with my name. So I'm happy about it.
Which you caused yourself.
I know.
I'll tell you a quick story about my name. So I was christened Gerald. Okay.
Yeah.
Went to school. Everyone started calling me Jerry. So people started phoning the house. Hey, is Jerry there? And my mother would answer, and she said, no one here by that name. Click, and she'd hang up. I'm not kidding you. That's a true story.
I was trying to teach them.
Yeah.
That's a tough love kind of route to take.
So the funny thing is for me, and you probably have this, certain people around me that call me Gerald are my close family and very
Mom
close
had to
friends.
say,
right.
Mom controlled it.
Similar for you?
Yeah, I mean, no one calls me Donald, not even my mom and dad. Donnie, always. And they'll like roll their eyes at like all the spellings that have gone on ever since, but they humor me clearly because, it's all good. But yeah, it's funny.
Well, you know what? I said this to you in an email exchange when Alan and I were on your show, Out of the Fog.
Yes, right.
Thank you for that, by the way.
God,
your mom and dad were in the audience.
Always are.
And I got to tell you, that impressed me, Don. So we're, starting back at the beginning. Well, let's talk about your mom and dad. And
wow. So my mom and dad are incredible, hardworking, both left high school early. And I remember that in my head, for some reason that stuck in my brain because they were so adamant on education, finishing school, all this. And we struggled. I mean, we grew up down a dirt road in Logy Bay. So, we didn't have like that big money background, but I had a load of family also in Logy Bay. We were always very tight, very, middle class, and they both worked. Mom was young with us at home, and then she went to work when my younger brother, Lucas, I have two brothers, older and younger, David and Lucas. David's 3 years older, Lucas is 5 years younger, and we're like the best of friends, And so in any case, Mom went to work when Lucas was young. Dad was a fireman, drove a bus before that. So like humble,
Yeah.
And hard work, always. Discipline, always. And I think that's like really paid off. And so I thank Mom and Dad for that so much. But Mom is more foolish and fun. Dad is just a relentless worker. If he's not in the garage, he's tinkering with something, or he's like watching a YouTube video about old cars. Like he's very industrious. Yeah. And that's where I think I get that. So Mom and Dad have had a huge impact on me. And I'm proud of that. And I love them so much.
It's interesting, though, Donnie, the whole coming from a family was anyone in your family business-oriented at all?
My Uncle Tom owned a store called Coady's Convenience on Blackler Avenue in the West End. And I was a kid, and I'd walk in, and I'd always be like, wow, he owns this.
Yeah.
And my Uncle Glenn owns a bunch of businesses locally, Glen Hickey, Collision Clinic, and Auto Parts Network, and all these things. But he was, so successful. I never really was like, wow, until later on in life did I really understand what he had built and grown from just a backyard car, fixing cars in a garage.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. And my Uncle Tom, he stayed at that store for a number of years before moving on into something else. So those were the only two entrepreneurial sort of close examples that I had. But
it didn't permeate the supper table.
No, not at all. No, my gosh, my mom and dad, I would say risk aversion And I understand that looking back on it, we're so arrogant when we're young and we think we know everything. And I look back on mom and dad, and of course they were risk adverse. It wasn't about adventure and risk. It was about finding safety and security and consistency. And a lot of people from that era, that was really what you were after, especially from that socioeconomic class, And so I never thought about being an entrepreneur because I never really felt much of that energy around. And I had union sort of parents who were very much like, get in, stay in, feel safe.
Yeah.
And I think that was important to them. And so that was all I really was raised with until, of course, later in life.
We're going to come back to that because, as you know, I'm totally fascinated by the move away from a paycheck to entrepreneurship.
Oh my gosh.
But so your mom and dad, they crafted that life, and you painted a great picture. You must do interviews or something, do you?
Oh my God, I don't mind talking.
So you're in school, and they're behind you, and they're pushing you. How are you doing in school?
I was not that great. I was great at language arts and art. But that's sort of where it ended. And it's funny because the joke is that music, marketing, and memes are all I'm good at. And that was true then and it's true now. You know what I mean? So ideas, like leading my friends through the fields of Logy Bay, making up rhymes and going on adventures and solving crimes and mysteries. Like that's all I ever did was leading the kids into the woods for fun. And that was and that's to this day. So some things don't change.
It's funny, how we put so much importance on schooling and, this person's really smart. Book smart, maybe, but there's so much to it, isn't there?
There is, and you're right, and yet, we are coming out of the era of that book smart is all that matters. And I grew up in that generation for sure. Being street smart and savvy and those things weren't really appreciated because they, again, were risky vibes versus high marks equaling getting into the next steps of that, you know what I mean? Post-secondary and all this.
Well, yeah, it's funny, as I said before we went on, I have two children. One's in university, the other one's still in high school. And the high school guy just can't wait to get out of high school. It is not for him. But, what we're learning about trades and, Al and I travel a lot around Newfoundland.
Yeah.
So much opportunity.
Big time.
So my gut is to tell my youngest, you know what, university not for you. Go do a keying course. Go do College in North Atlantic. Something that's going to make you marketable, right?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I think if I look back, the time machine of me, it was like 1997 when I was leaving high school and doing what, you know what I mean? And so ultimately going into university was a mistake in hindsight, but it was what we all had to do. And it was not a time where Cabot or now CNA was such a thriving option as it has become.
Yeah.
And I agree with you because university is very much about the theoretical. And I like to put my hands on it. And that is more trade driven, to your point. So I thrived in CNA. CNA changed my life.
So, you did mention before we hit record that you were in university. Frankly, that didn't go well.
Nope.
And I just stopped you saying, CNA changed your life.
Yeah, it did.
But I want to back up just slightly. So you're in university.
Yeah.
You're flailing about.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to find your way.
Can't do it.
What made you go to CNA and have that change your life? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yes. Whoa. So I just remember being stoned in the back of my friend Lisa's van the night before my 1081 math exam. And we're driving around the city, Natalie Imbruglia's on the box, and I'm just staring out the window being like, I'm in trouble.
This is not going to go well tomorrow.
Not tomorrow and not now in life, you know? But see, I was always working multiple jobs. And I think looking back, the reason why I might have failed out of MUN is because I was working full time with the city of St. John's, a job my dad had gotten me, the whole safety security play, right? And I worked for the city for 12 years, funny enough. 12 years I worked for the rec department, which I loved, and I love them all to this day. But the point is, I was working so much that I wasn't putting enough time into school. And that's a whole thing. What can you do in hindsight? Take on student loans? Like, I don't regret that because that's when I really dug in and started to make money and realized I could make money. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I worked 3 jobs ever since. So anyway, MUN, knew it wasn't going to work out, failed out. What am I doing? I'm working overnight shifts at the Muse Center at this point, and all of a sudden I find out this program called multimedia exists, but it's only offered in Clarenville. And it's brand new, and you learn how to make websites, whatever those are. You know what I'm saying? And like learn how to make TV and video and all these things, graphic design principles.
We're talking what year?
2000
Wow.
at this point. Yeah.
It's the infancy of the whole thing.
It just had come to the province as a thing you could
Yeah.
do. Found it, applied on a Friday. I got the last seat in the program. I moved out the next day, literally Friday afternoon, on the phone. Yeah, there's a room. Sweet, let's go. Moved out Saturday, started Monday. And now I grew up, you know, Power Towny, East End life. No outside the overpass. Don't know what that's about because my folks both grew up in the city. So like I don't even have relatives around the Bay. You know what I'm saying? So I met some of the most amazing people and had the best 2 years of my life out there in Clarenville and saw so much of the province I hadn't seen. It just woke me up in a bunch of ways and I loved it. And then I came back and I did graphic design.
How old are you at this point?
19, 20.
You're young.
20.
Yeah.
20 in 2000. Then as soon as that, and that's when I joined ACE, which has become Enactus. Traveled to Toronto.
Just so you know, I was there with ACE when it was MUNES, Memorial University Entrepreneur Society.
No,
the year I was there, in
pre-ACE?
1992, it morphed into ACE and then became Enactus. Anyway, yeah.
That's amazing. That was my first, because I, you know, had a Herald route my entire childhood, picked strawberries in my neighbor's thing in the summertime. Like I was always making money in different ways, you know?
So backing up, so you're always making money, but ACE, why ACE? And you're at College of North Atlantic.
That's true.
Yeah.
In Clarenville.
So, yeah, and then there was a guy I met at College of North Atlantic years ago. He's passed away now, Dan something or other.
I don't know.
Anyway, okay.
Okay.
So ACE, why ACE?
So, you know why? Because within a month of me starting in there, I was president of the student council. And I mean, talking about waking up energies that you didn't know that you
Were
had.
you the president before of any student
Well,
council?
no,
or-
because I mean,
Never ran for student council, ever were before?
no, I had no confidence in high school. I was just trying to like blend in, man. Like I was not trying to stand out in any regard. And so, of course, no, don't do it. Take any risks. You know what I'm saying? Like play it safe. But when I moved out there, that was a big swing for someone like me who hadn't really taken many big swings. And so I just like, it changed my life. Just the environment, the opportunities that came my way. Next thing you know, I'm performing on the local access channel in Clarenville. I'm student council president. I'm in ACE. We're flying to Toronto. Like I'm just like, who am I?
Who is this
But
guy?
it felt right to me.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. And I'm actually doing it in a creative context where I'm creating and I'm ideating and I'm doing the things that I know I'm good at. I'm writing you know? And now all these things are also happening, which are leadership and professional development things all rolled into so many things. And so I was like, oh my God, this is great. So 2 years there. And then as soon as I moved into St. John's to do 2 years of graphic design production, student council president there, in Enactus there. And I was now working at Data Store, which was a local IT company that had just started. And I was working part-time making websites there while also working for the city, playing in bands every Saturday night and in college for 2 more years and run the student council. So I learned how to carry a lot of things at once.
Yeah, no kidding.
Which is its own training. Yeah.
And you're still only, what, 22, 23 at this point?
Yeah, I'm 24 at this point. By the time I finished my Prince Philip Drive, I was 24. And I had already started working at the Idea Factory, an incredible startup agency. And I was like the 5th person or 6th person hired there. And I fell in love. And Ed Roach, who was the creative director, and Kevin Casey, who I suppose you'd call him like customer success in using these terms, the account director.
Yeah.
Anyway, those 2 guys, I did a work term with them. And then I ended up staying on full time. And I worked with them for over 4 years while doing like little bits in the shadows, websites, because no one was really, right? Like agencies weren't even understanding what you're right? And anyway, the point is, Ed Roach and Kevin Casey changed my life, and they exposed me to my life that I have today, and I wouldn't have if it wasn't for them.
Were you doing any client-facing things then, or were you behind the scenes?
Behind the
creative
scenes,
work?
totally in the creative team.
Interesting.
Loving the writing, the design, all the things that we were doing. And I can't even say that I was like thirsty to be in front of the clients. Like, I don't know, I was having so much fun working with this amazing team of talented people in the booming agency that everyone wanted to work with. And Kevin, speaking of Power Townies, I mean, he had everyone of that time coming in and out of that office like it was a parade.
Yeah.
And we were just in awe of him and what he was able to do.
Yeah.
Like, he is to me like, whoa. I still to this day, like when I think about Kevin, I think that, yeah, him and Ed at that time changed my life and exposed me to everything I ended up becoming.
It's interesting. They changed they shook up the agency world a good bit too, didn't they?
Well, I mean, panache and charisma will take you a long way, and the boys knew how to present.
Yeah. I love the hockey contract that they got and how they did that. But anyway, Kevin and I have already done our podcast.
Oh, right on. Yes, I know he's been here.
And I got to tell you, I actually didn't know you were at Idea Factory.
Yeah.
So we were talking before we hit record, by the way, folks, that despite the fact we've been in similar circles, we actually, and it's funny, Donnie, you don't know people.
I know. That's why I love interviewing with Out of the Fog, because you really get to have chats with folks and ask them questions that either they've never been asked or it's been a dog's age since. And that's the energy.
Well, I think it's important because we live in a community and we need to know each other.
Agree.
You know? We need to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Again, I find your story so fascinating, mostly because, it's got a mixture of entrepreneurship and marketing and all of that, which, anyway, you've painted quite a picture, and I can see why Mom and Dad are proud.
Oh, wow.
So just keep going with the story. Okay, you were 4 years with Idea Factory.
Yeah,
You're not client-facing.
No.
Where did you go from there?
Well, I was always in the shadows. People asked me to do stuff, and by this time I was very much playing with a local band. I was using Facebook and all the channels to really get us moving ahead, and I was loving it all. Doing a bunch of contract work in the shadows, working with them full-time plus, loving every second of it, and still working part-time with the city, which the boys didn't like. I'm gonna pay me more. It's like, you know what I mean? And plus, I'm that guy. I can get up early. I can stay up late. I'm not don't need my beauty rest, right? Maybe these days I do. Anyway, point is, working for 4 years, left when there was probably almost 20 people working at the Idea Factory. But I left because I was actually headhunted by this brand new company called MediLink, who the owner had done a course at Kean or some such, and he had learned how to code. And so he started an app for optical companies that allowed them to process their front desk orders and this and that, which is ubiquitous to tech these days. But he was the first, and he got the first one of the first ACOA loans to start a company.
Holy crap.
And they just shoveled the money at him. And it went, and I'm not going to say his name, and I've said too much about the company name, but this is eons old. But either way, I can say this with no shame. I've never seen money go to someone's head so quick. And so all of a sudden there was a load of us young, learning people trying to run this tech company, and he's down at Miami Crunk Fest. It became hilarious. So I felt very insecure after a very few months of leaving the factory to take this leadership position, win more money. I was a creative director for this tech company. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Very unstable by the sound of it.
Yeah, only because of the leadership. Looking back, you got to be compassionate. He was in over his head too, and aren't we all? So be it. Anyway, so I was like, peace, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, just through Kismet, another man reaches out. He has a number of interests, from retail to publishing to a new app in a tech company that he also had ACOA funding for, that was specializing in how to help folks who don't have formal educations to run their own business, so, which was very much interesting to me. And so I said, okay, I'll come over here and I'll help you with these things. Meanwhile, I already had a bunch of clients in the shadow, so I'm feeling somewhat stable in my little life, And I said, I'll do this for you for 1 year. I said, but if I do a good job, will you become my first client? I don't know where I came up with that idea. Anyway, they were like, yes. Sure enough, a year later, I said, hello. I'm going to do my thing. Are you in? They were. And because they were, and I had heard that businesses don't last, 90% of businesses fail in the first 5 years and all these averages, and plus I'd consumed the entire courseware of what non-entrepreneurs needed to know to start businesses via the work as written by these gentlemen, which is, I still use some of the methodologies today. I was because I learned, because they knew everything from their education, So anyway, long story short is that I started my company, DC Design House. They were my first clients. I already had 4 staff hired by the time I started day one because I was so anxious about not failing that I ramped up memories of me walking around Churchill Square in February in a snowstorm with my little book of samples of work that I could do, knocking on the doors and going in and being like, yo, that's the kind of stuff I did in year one to really not fail. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
Been doing that for quite a while.
Yeah. Those are the moments that make you.
Let me ask you this. So when you're working for someone else and you find out that a job you don't get hired, and now you weren't that front facing, but, and I'm going to position it this way.
Okay.
I struggled when I went out on my own. When I got a no, I really took that personally.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't like, I didn't find no's hard prior to, but when it's someone else owns the business, not that I don't care, but I cared more when it was my own business. Tell me what it was like to have that walk around Churchill Square. People only have so much money. You're one of 50 on the list.
Yeah.
When you got to know, how did you feel?
Well, I mean, it's devastating.
Yeah.
Like Dear Diary, like what the hell? But I didn't allow myself the time ever to get into that mood because I always was so busy with so many different things. And if that was a no, I just believed that there was a yes coming. Because, I do believe that every down exists to really help you appreciate the ups.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so ultimately, I knew that in my heart. And plus, I felt so blessed with so many opportunities leading up to that point that I just had that internal belief. And I don't know if people listening to this will think that's an arrogant or I don't know what they would say about that. But like personally, I believe in myself. And so I know that I'm going to be successful and I'm going to do the thing that I'm setting out to do. So I did.
Yeah.
Just like I had been doing, and I did that. And so that's why I was able to support the team and grow and the rest of the adventure. I mean, starting the company when I did was like so exciting. And 15 years later, here we are. It's like a blink. It's like a blink.
We've interviewed a lot of people. Your description of how you morphed into an entrepreneur is probably one of the best.
Well, it's just through insecurity.
Yeah.
Which I grew up in a quest for that feeling. As I mentioned, like how we were raised, And then I found myself in a situation where I didn't trust that I was going to be secure based on the instability of what. And so all I did was try to find the next place to achieve that. That's all in my mind, it's no grandiose. I just knew that wasn't working out. And that means I got to create what's going to work out. So I can stop being scared,
So you've got a client, you're out on your own, you got 4 people working for you already.
Yeah.
Now you got a payroll.
Oh yeah, boy.
That's a motivator.
That's crazy.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, clench. I mean, I got a $60K loan to start my business. I took it out, a personal loan.
Yeah.
And then I paid back in 6 months. What do you ask?
That's good.
And I didn't know what was going to happen, but I did meet through these folks who own this company. I'd say their names, but it's interesting, right? Sometimes you feel inclined and sometimes you don't know if they want, right? But they're great guys. Hello. Anyway, Frank Collins, God rest his soul, was hired on as their finance guy. And so as an employee, we became tight. And so, of course, when the time came, I asked him, I said, if I pay you, can you help me establish the company and do the things I need to do? He said, sure. And right up until probably year 8, he was the one who helped me manage my growth, and we grew. And so he was the guy behind the scenes for all of that until one unfortunate day where we got a phone call. Guess what? I have cancer. Within like 2 weeks, he was gone. And this is before the cloud. So all of our business was in his filing cabinet in Cowan Heights. But that's the logical business side. Emotionally, we were devastated because Frank was, to me, like the godfather of helping me into business. Because day one, I hired him, and it was advice that I'd gotten from Sharon Wells, who I love so much. She runs Collision Clinic. And she said, hire your weakness, she told me. And finance, details, contracts, government things, my weakness.
Bureaucracy.
My weakness.
There's a lot of weaknesses for a lot of people.
Big time. I have many. Anyway, so bottom line is, Frank, God rest his soul. And so every year I give a scholarship to CNA in his name for a finance student so that they remember the name Frank Collins because he means everything to me.
That's amazing.
God rest him. Yeah, it's years now that he's been gone. Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing. I mean, I think a lot of the business people who watch this, so you're in a really emotional time, but you're also in a time where you need that expertise. How long, was it hard? Because it's really hard to find good accounting now. Back then, what was it like?
Listen, I'm going to tell you, we might come back to it, we might not. The last person who was counting my money stole $115,000 of it. And that's,
sorry to hear that.
thank you, me too. And that's moving through litigation and all the things right now. So I'm just like, that's compartmentalized over here. That's like literally in real time, this is happening.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
You never know when you ask a question where it's going to go, do you?
I know. Bottom line, Frank, amazing. Really helps me appreciate not having someone like Frank around. Now, Linda Miller, she is like my money queen long game, but she wasn't working in the day-to-day clerical arena at that time. So yes, anyway, Frank, amazing. And yes, that happens. And myself and my business partner at the time were devastated. And we were also at the apex of our stress over the company and how it had boomed and how unready we were and how wrong seat, wrong bus so many things were and how just gong show it became. So we were dealing with our own overwhelm, and then that happened, and that just was like devastating.
It's interesting, Donnie, you're talking about success, and I kind of mentioned it to you today. I'm a little off myself, but there's so much growth happening, and the push and the pull, and then it gets in here, doesn't it? Like,
oh, it's in there, man. Yeah. Oh yeah,
it's like the stress of a business, and apparently we're not trying to scare people away.
No,
but
no.
We have to talk frankly about it. It is day to day somewhat overwhelming, isn't it?
Well, the non-F-withable conversation applies because that's the gift. Pressure makes diamonds. Well, guess what it does. And so, like every valley, you got to be ready, lean into it, work through it, the discipline and all the buzzwords you can muster, and get ready, because guess what? Soon you're going to be loving life again.
Yeah.
Even I think about that on a granular level, like even in my email inbox. Now, like I'm a geek. So like I measure my self-worth by how many emails are left in my inbox at the end of the day. Right? You know what I mean? Like I'm
You would
that,
not want to see mine.
Oh, really? Well, I'm like that guy, right? Like I might have 3 in there right now, and I'm like, you know what I mean? Anyway, the point is that when it comes to all of the you versus you that it gets to in the land of business success and performance, that's, I think, you're either wanting to step into that ring or you're not. You know what I mean? And I'm in it.
Well, on that note, this is why I love entrepreneurship so much, because frankly, and I've been 100% commission sales my whole life prior to 4 years ago, not on my own. And as I said, I call myself a semipreneur. Business absolutely forces you to get your shit together.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I think more people should be engaged in the entrepreneurial endeavor.
Yeah.
Too much complacency around, give me a little bit about your thoughts on that.
I have so much to say about that. I'll keep it to the point. I feel like the entrepreneurial conversation is interesting to me, and I wonder if anyone else agrees that we have perhaps in the town square of business been speaking so heavily about the need for entrepreneurialism and putting us up on these pedestals and all these things that we have forgotten the intrapreneurial conversation, which has been very much something I've been trying to promote in conversations for a long time now. Because I don't want anyone who wants to be the weapon that they are meant to be to feel lessened by the fact that they didn't end up doing it under their own umbrella.
Yeah.
And I think that there are some folks in my orbit who I've met over the years, some clients even, and some folks that I work with in various capacities who maybe ended up in the entrepreneurial arena when it did contain a level of risk and emotional agility and that they wish that they had known beforehand, I do. Some.
I love it. I love what you're saying. And I said this, I spent 30 years in the traditional media business. Very intrapreneurial, you call it, right?
It is, exactly.
Moved from print to digital and all over.
And owning it.
Yeah, and you're right. I think I hold business people and entrepreneurs in so much high esteem, many of which maybe shouldn't. But I like what you're saying, because the people that probably haven't taken that leap are still doing amazing things. I love that. I love that.
There should be Intrapreneur of the Year awards.
Yeah.
And I would nominate everyone on my team for that, because they own it. It's theirs. And I never doubt that they feel that way. And they know that I can trust them. And I find that to be amazing. And let's just say on the entrepreneurial scale, anyone can put a kite in the air, we said earlier. But can you keep that kite in the air? And I think that is beyond intra versus extra or intra. I think that is like the game we're here to play, is how long can you keep that up and keep it running and keep it moving? And whether you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, that's the game that winners, whether you own it or just lead it, are both playing.
Yeah. You remind me of a guy, Gary Carville. I don't know if you ever met him. He's passed away now, but he explained sales to me as being like, picture a, what do you call a tram that's on a train track up in the sky.
Yeah.
And he said, Jerry, sales is like you're on one of those tracks riding a bike. He said, what do you think happens when you stop pedaling? You fall off. Anyway, this is very early on in my sales career. And, I'm going to morph into something about mentorship. And I bring up a name. I don't know if you saw my post. I actually sat with the very first sales manager I ever had, Dave Newbury, where he was in town.
That's
you know
the
him?
name.
You know him?
Yes, legendary.
Well, I can tell you, you talk about hard work and luck. I lucked out on having him as my sales manager.
Oh, wow.
And I said to him point blank last week, Dave, you're the reason that I've had 35 years of success.
That's amazing.
And I meant it. And I don't think...
I love that.
Yeah, so...
I love giving people their flowers. I love taking the moment to be vulnerable and be like, you helped me, or I'm thanking you, or you're amazing. Because people don't hear it as much as we wish that they did.
Well, I grew up in a place, my mom was a secretary, my dad was deceased. I never had any business people around me. 100% commission. And Dave gave me the right pushes when I needed it, in the very first. How lucky is that? Tell me a little bit about mentors and what that means.
Oh my God. Everything. So I'm involved with a bunch of mentoring organizations. I give back hardcore in that arena, and I love it. And because I've been mentored by so many amazing people also. So I've always been Futurepreneur, EQ3 are two organizations that I've been a part of on that scale. And I think that it is our duty to help show the future what's up. And I mean, I'm very the way I am now is the way I am, no matter the age you are, it doesn't matter. So I have this thing in the company also I've run for years called an energy exchange, where we'll get someone to come in, because I get a number of folks who reach out, hey, I'm interested in marketing or advertising or this or that or whatever, what's it like? And we talk sometime. So I'm like, come in. So they come in, I'll give them a little mini easy project, but it's the environment that they're soaking in, and it's the conversations they're overhearing, and it's the energy, and that's what's going to make you say, do I want to walk farther down this? It's not the work itself. It's all the energies of the industry, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that, and I think that's helped a bunch of people, and I've ended up hiring some years later. They come back to me, be like, hey, I did this thing with you, and then I went in, I did graphic design and this and that, and then I'm like, oh my God, I need help. So next thing you know, they're working with me, full circle, So that happens, that's fun. So anyways, mentoring to me is critical, and I think that there is so much to be said for increasing our responsibility amongst the business community or the leadership community to mentor, because we need to be showing people the way. Knowledge transfer, or KT, is huge, and we're not talking about KT enough. A lot of people are moving on. A lot of people are coming up. Where's the knowledge transfer? And then thankfully there's Atlantic Canadian companies like On Point, owned by the incredible Chantel Bryan, who is literally creating software that helps connect the mentor and mentee experience in workplaces of every size, where you're programmatically mentoring people for performance outcomes, KT, etc.
Interesting.
Yeah.
In a few episodes from now, I'm going to release a gentleman who's from Portland, Oregon, from Canada, but went to Portland, Oregon, and created, get this now, 10 veterinarian clinics. His name is John Madigan, so I already interviewed him. Donnie, he's living in St. John's now, and he just wants to give back. And
I love it.
Anyway,
mentoring, mentorship, giving back, being on boards and committees and such.
He wants to give back.
That's the easiest way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Committees and boards.
Yeah.
I've met the most passionate, amazing friends of my life in the business trench due to volunteerism and those types of activities.
I agree with you.
That's where the passionate people are.
Yeah. Total pivot here now.
Sure.
Music. Let's talk about
Yes.
music. I told you I'm in a jazz band. I actually have on my shirt. This is the Montreal Jazz Festival. Our head office was in Montreal, and every time I was there, I was either the week before or the week after. I finally ended up there the week during, and anyway, it was incredible. Jazz is what I'm into.
Oh, wicked.
Tell us about your musical career.
Well, Chrissy and Kevin Coady were my two older cousins who lived in Mount Pearl, and they had Zeppelin posters on the wall and drum kits in the basement, and I was like, what is this? And it wasn't too long before I started being the lead in all the plays growing up in school. I just gravitated towards that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's funny, like I don't consider myself an actor, but I definitely did a lot of that growing up in the school plays, singing and all the solos, And so I was like, oh yeah, and I was always sang in choirs, and I was like a choir geek, I guess you'd say. Like I was in like concert choir, liturgy, chamber choir. I was singing, that's all I ever loved to do. And so did that, and then started playing acoustic, and then playing in bands. And
you just put your left hand. Are you left?
I'm lefty.
You are, yeah.
Yeah, but I taught my two brothers how to play right-handed guitar, so I play both. I can play both ways, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I turn it over, like, you know what I mean? So like the if it's an electric guitar or like a plugged-in guitar, like the thing is at the bottom, so I can't really turn it up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I play both ways, yeah.
That's
and so, And so always played guitar and sang and played in a bunch of bands and have a bunch of experiences with music, and I love it all. Yeah. It's amazing.
So you're in a band now, or are you?
Yeah, I'm sort of like Eras is a project that myself and my bud Rich, and we put out 2 albums over a number of years, alt pop. If you like Foster the People, Tame Impala, those types of bands, like that's more like our lean. But the idea of playing 200 odd shows a year and traveling around so that you can do the thing, I'm really busy, so I find that hard. So music to me is like a beautiful side dish.
Yeah.
Even though, back in the day, quote unquote, in the 2000s, we'd play 3 and 4 nights a week downtown before DJ culture became mainstream. George Street was all bands in all the bars.
Yeah.
And now it's all DJs, which I love that also in a different way. But, I played 4 nights a week downtown, man, singing pop songs,
That is tiring. Alan and I interviewed Alan Doyle in Summerside, where he was doing Telltale Harbor.
Oh, yeah.
And he described his musical career.
Yeah.
I was exhausted at the end of it. Yeah. Then he got out, he took the mic off and he drove to New Brunswick to do a concert, drove back for Monday morning to do Telltale Harbor. 4 nights a week, you're downtown and you're staying up till 2, 3 in the morning?
Well, it's funny, I was always the last to show and the first to go.
Yeah.
And because I had work the next morning. I always worked 3 jobs. Like I always was busy with work and things that I had committed to do. My friends were like, chasing the dragon until 11 and 12 the next day. That was never me. And yet it's funny because people know you in different ways. So some people know me through business. Some know me through singing down at the bar. So some people think I'm like the guy who's going to be up all night partying. I'm like, bro, I'm in bed, man. The second the mic drop, pack up, peace, because I got to be up early. I've always been that way. Yeah. Surprising, right?
So let me ask you this. It's a tough question or an easy question.
Sure.
What does music mean to you?
Music to me is restorative. It's my introspective opportunity. The words that I write with lyrical flow and that sort of alliterative, energy that you're allowed to put into lyrics versus more commercial writing or long tail writing. That's my chance to weave and to just play with words. And that's meditative for me and it's relaxing for me and creative, of course. And so getting to sing that's harder because I had a major vocal injury, by the way. I was singing for 709 for 4 years, like I mentioned earlier, but then I suffered a major vocal injury within 30 days. It was like someone let the air out of the tire of my ability to sing. And I'm a high tenor singer. So I wonder if after 4 years of 25 shows a year, 709 would play during that time. Every second Saturday night, and sometimes we play 3 nights in a weekend. Some nights we leave on Saturday morning after playing Friday night, drive out to a place as far as Rocky Harbor for some bougie rich person's wedding reception, and drive back.
No way.
The same night.
You got to be kidding me.
Listen, I can't.
For anyone who doesn't know Newfoundland, that's what, like a 10-hour drive?
I'll never forget, we finished the gig and John Drover, another incredible business head here in our city.
Hi, John, if you're watching.
Love. Who is the founder of 709, the lead guitarist. He's a shredder, as you know. Yeah, we finished the gig in Rocky Harbor, and it was probably 2:30 in the morning at this point. He was like, I think we're going to do it. And I was like, no, bro. He was like, yeah, we're going. I was like, oh my God. But that's no joke. We did that another time. We drove up to play Western Health in Corner Brook. Drove back. That after the gig, 3:30 in the morning. Drove back.
That's wild.
He's wild.
I drove to St. Anthony in one day one time, and that's 14 hours.
That's 14 hours.
Very happy with myself for doing that.
Yeah.
Listening to what you do after performing.
Oh my God.
Anyway,
We're all soaking wet, right? And but that's the relentless energy that is in the beast of John Drover, which is why he's successful in business, and it's why he volunteers, and it's why he gets it all done. And he said, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. It's because that's in us.
yeah.
That relentless discipline is, I think, what makes leaders, whether you own a business, intra or entre, right? That's what we got, is relentless discipline in us. Do you feel this way?
I do. As you're talking, and I think, frankly, I was thinking about you on television, everything else you got going on, and there you are on Rogers TV. How many years are you doing that now?
Well, that's 5 years now.
5 years.
I know, it's great.
Talking about keeping the kite in the air, that's
It's
not
fun.
easy.
You know, I'm a collector. I never leave anyone. If you come into my orbit, man, we're dancing for life in one way or another, and it's a joke, but I also think it's true. And so I just collect things. Like that show, I started doing the show, so now I just do the show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, to me, it's not even work, because I get to see people who I love, who I don't get a chance to see usually, or meet new people every now and then. And I love the Rogers staff. They're all wicked, right? So it's like every 2 Thursdays, I'll go in there and I'll do 2 shows back to back, and they air the following 2 Thursdays. So for 2 hours of my time on a Thursday from 5 to 7, I get to see a bunch of people I love, tell them they're awesome. They feel amazing. They feel seen. They're going to keep doing their thing that they're trying to do. That's the fuel for their fire. And I just love all that. So there's nothing bad about it.
You know, on that note, I think it's probably fair to give a shout out to Rogers. I didn't really pay attention to how much they do until I started doing some of it for myself. Think about the community, the reflection of community that they have.
Yeah.
Cultural diversity.
Amazing.
I mean, it's incredible.
It's incredible. The programming that they're doing, and Perry Cooper is the man. He's been working there for a long time. He loves it just as much. He is running that over there, and so big kudos to him and all the Rogers staff and volunteers, because that's why Rogers is so, I feel, unique, because so many folks can just volunteer there and learn about all of that true mentorship, right? That's a Rogers value.
Well, you know, for me, it's a little bit of a full circle moment. I don't know if I told you this. I volunteered in 1984 at Cable Atlantic.
No way.
You were about 4 years old then, right?
Danny, or
I was 16.
Wow.
I'll never forget being given the camera, and someone said to me, "Now, this camera's $50,000 and that lens is another 20. Don't drop it." And I was scared shitless. Like I'm walking around with the thing
I
as if
bet.
it's a baby, right?
Yeah, well, it was.
But I tell you, I learned an enormous amount about video production right there. And you get thrown into it, don't you?
Yeah, they're amazing. And I can only assume back then with so much more equipment and so much more of all of that. I mean, I would like to look at you there.
Well, I tell you, it's funny, you know, I won't, there's a camera right here, little tiny camera, and we talked about it. I mean, everything's so small. When we first started shooting in 1984, you had the main unit, but then you had to carry the tape deck on, and everything weighed probably 100 pounds.
Amazing.
And I wasn't a big guy. It was exhausting.
Yeah,
and it's funny, on your set now, and I look up there, they got those PZM cameras.
Exactly.
All remote
And they're all
control.
around, we're all like this, you know?
Well, I mean, you know, so we're going to morph into a little bit of technology now. We've been talking 44 minutes.
Oh my God.
One of the things I love about you as well is your ability to understand technology and all of that. What do you, and we'll morph into a little bit about advertising in a second.
Sure.
What do you think the technological change that's happening, you know, AI and all that? Give me your thoughts on that.
Well, I, for one, welcome our new overlord. So that's the first thing I'll say. Technology wizards out there. I mean, you know, I think that AI has really helped so many people do so many things. Where is it going? We don't know. Is it incredibly helpful in a bunch of regards? Absolutely. Thankful for it. Try not to overthink it while listening and absorbing every webinar and podcast around AI and the future thereof it. It's definitely creating a lot of opportunity for folks to create businesses. And I do sometimes worry about the loss of what I perceive to be roles that I'm used to. And yet, well, what's the percentage? I read a recent survey, 20% of the jobs that we are all applying for, living these days, didn't exist 5 years ago. The customer success manager, I mentioned it earlier on in our hang, that wasn't a job 5 years ago.
No.
Now it is, relative of membership-driven or subscription-based apps and tools. That's where that job title came from, right? And having a ground floor entry into the world of tech and marketing like I have, almost 20 years later, I can say, whoa, we've come a long way, baby.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, as you're talking, I'll tell you a little bit about, the podcast. When we shoot a video and you go into YouTube, and prior to AI, putting a description and timestamps in a YouTube description.
Oh yeah, man.
An hour-long interview could take 2 hours to do because you had to listen to the damn thing. Then, transcripts came.
Exactly.
Even the transcripts are tough because so many misspellings and they're not full sentences.
Totally.
Now, I literally will take that transcript, put it into AI, give me a YouTube description and timestamps, and I get it back in a matter of seconds.
Oh yeah.
So with this business, we've done close to 2,000 interviews. Think about that, the amount of time that's freed up. So I don't lament the fact that that's going to take away. Like if someone was employed doing that, that would take their job away. For me in this small business, that's freeing me up to think and do other things, right?
Couldn't agree more. I think I'm talking about things like paralegals.
Right. Okay.
Spellbook, which is an AI.
Oh yeah.
Right? And I'm not, there's no sadness here. It's just looking in on the situation and acknowledging that this evolution is going to have an impact on the number of people required to do this type of work. But that's always been, and it's always going to be, so be it.
Yeah. Well, editing is a good example. I did an hour-long a video I pumped into AI and put out 21 reels. 21. That would have taken me a month.
Oh my God, of course it would have.
Do you know how long it took? 11 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, AI usually takes seconds, so it'll tell you even AI took a while. But it took 11 minutes to do 21 videos.
Yeah.
So I started to think, oh my God, my existence. But I also realized that not everyone knows how to do what we're doing right here now.
Exactly.
So from my own perspective, I'm trying to figure out what's going to replace, what's going to be essential. You're probably in the same boat, right?
I am, and I have clients of mine, and they're feeling different kind of ways, which is what really matters. Is what do you know about AI and what do you assume about AI? And so let me just say that there are certain clients in my life who are, I would say, more gracious and humble and asking versus thinking.
Yeah.
And they understand AI as a benefit. I have some clients who think that it is now something that they shouldn't be paying me to be doing because they perceive that me writing a narrative core or a brand story, which is one of my favorite things to do, creatively speaking, for somebody, they perceive that, oh, you should just run that through ChatGPT and we're done. And why do you need to charge me X if you're going to do that in such little time using this third-party tool? So there's some folks who have a little bit of an unappreciative view because it suits them too.
Yeah.
And that's business, baby.
You know what, though? I really appreciate you saying that. And I was talking to a photographer the other day, and he was at a wedding, and the lady wanted him to not use any flash.
Okay.
And he said to me, he goes, Jerry, I need to use a flash.
Yeah.
And she, the bride, said to him, no, just run it through AI.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, he said, it doesn't do it the same. When you start doing that, the shadows and all that. Anyway, my point is, you're right. People are starting to think that AI is going to replace a lot of things. So we have to educate them. And frankly, you've got a lot of credibility. You can run stuff through AI.
Sure.
But perfection, it's not.
Let's not forget, every brand, and not even a brand, every division of that brand, every office, every group, if you really want to get granular, we have our own lexicon, our own nomenclature, our own nuances, our own, and AI is never going to get down to the level of the discrete knowings between a client and a brand manager. And I'm not worried about that because I know that to be true.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to a guy like 2 weeks ago in the mining sector, and he's the CEO of a mining company. I won't name him. It's not fair. But he said that there's a lot of people starting to use AI for posts and things. And he said to me, he goes, you know what, Jerry? He said, I'm actually doing my own. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You're the CEO of a very large mining company and you're doing your own. But you know what? His personality comes across. I said to him, before any of that came up, I said to him, I really like what you're doing on social media. He goes, I do that. So anyway, I was blown away by that, right?
Well, I'm blown away by it now because to me, if you're the CEO of a company that I would assume to be large scale, but maybe not.
They're growing. I don't know if they're large scale yet.
Well,
right?
Kiss that goodbye.
Yeah. Well, you need people like me and you to help with that.
Well, yeah, or like running through AI, you know what I mean? Whatever.
But personality matters, and I think that's something you've cultivated. Just talk about that. You unapologetically have a approach somewhat quirky sometimes,
Maybe.
I would say.
Maybe.
But you don't care, do you?
No.
You just throw it out there.
Yeah, because I've gotten back so many blessings in my life. The more you dare to be yourself, just the better life gets, you know? And I think that like ultimately when you grow up, especially insecure, you're trying to like find yourself and who am I and all this, like it's very easy for us to play it safe and to homogenize or to not take those risks, you know, or to try to hide what you think are your weaknesses. But guess what? Once you know that they're actually your strengths, game over.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I have any competition.
Yeah.
Because I know who I am, and I've embraced my weird, eccentric ways, and I don't look at them as things to be hidden or ashamed of anymore. I look at those things to celebrate, and that's changed my life.
Yeah. I love that. I spoke to another guy one time, and I asked him, he's an investment guy, and I said, you know, geez, that's a very competitive marketplace. No. He goes, I don't have any competition.
Yeah.
Now, this gentleman said to me, he said, I work 7 days a week, and I've done that for 40 years.
Yeah, me too.
You know what? And I'll say something to you. And I thought about it. I said, Jesus Christ, who wants to work 7 days a week? And then I thought about it. In the last 4 years, I have worked every single day, even when I'm on vacation.
I believe it.
I may structure it in a way where it doesn't bleed into my family.
Exactly.
I'll do it earlier in the morning or late at night.
Yeah, same.
Tell us a little bit about, and we'll clue this up, but
Cool.
Your commitment to business has to be all in. You're all in, aren't you?
All in.
Yeah.
And it's because I get back so much from it. I feel so appreciated and so excited and so deeply a part of so many things that are making this province and our Atlantic Canadian region happen. And I feel so lucky and blessed to be a part of so many conversations around projects and initiatives and things that are happening. I couldn't be any more in that energy of appreciation. And back to the discipline conversation. 7 days a week, 60 to 80 hours a week minimum. But I'm so used to it, and it's just in my DNA now. Mm-hmm. You know, there is no going back. People talk about retirement. I like cringe. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I don't picture myself falling down behind a boardroom table. I'm going to be out in the streets doing what I've been doing and what I'm going to keep doing, which is helping all the passionate people to make their good things happen, because that's how my good things happen. Kathy Hicks said that. She said, Don, you know, success, she's like, I make sure everyone around me gets what they want.
Yeah.
And that's how I get what I want.
Yeah.
Is to give to get, right? So, and you live it, right?
Well, and I think it's very important in Newfoundland in particular right now. The economy is on the cusp, and I keep saying this, and some people question me on it. It's on the cusp of its greatest resurgence in its history.
I love it.
There's so much happening. It's astounding. And I'll give you one
true.
example. One example. 2 weeks ago, we interviewed I can't remember what his title was, Ryan King, Caliber Mining.
Okay.
And he said that the one part of the mine out in the Gander area that they are responsible for is going to be the largest open pit gold mine in Atlantic Canada. And he said, I think 5 million ounces. So when the interview ended, I couldn't wait to go in and just Google, what is the price of an ounce of gold? It was at the time $2,300. So I did the numbers. That's $13 billion, Donnie.
I'm on Wealth Simple immediately.
$13 billion for one aspect of that. That's not including wind energy and everything else that's going on in Labrador. I think the province, the parents need to make sure the youth are ready for this. We need people to be ready. We need people to be like you. We need more of you.
We need more of you.
60-hour weeks, right?
More of us.
More of us.
I think that
Mutual admiration
Let's
society.
do one up. I'm very here for it, man. And you know what? I think that's a great parting glass, which is like, I think that anyone who's watching this, I hope that you are living leadership life and aspiring life, and you're in search of discipline and impact and all the things that I think that we are, and a lot of leaders, whether you are intra or entrepreneurial. But man, if you only knew what was going on in this province, and that's why I feel so blessed to be so inside of so many different arenas under the umbrella of Newfoundland and Labrador, because it is so exciting. Like, I'm nauseous.
Yeah.
The projects and the people and the initiatives and the things that are going on in this place every day. If you know, you know. And if you know, then you best be excited, because there's a lot happening.
And I'm going to add this. If you don't know, find out, because you need to tell more people. This place is on wheels.
It's on under the surface. It's on wheels.
So to clue this up,
Yes, sir.
where, based on all that, where are you taking the business? What are you going to have? 400 employees? Or are you? No. Tell us a little bit about it, and then we'll call it a night.
Sure thing. So, I'm in my like consultant era, meaning that like I'm the brand manager that my clients talk to mostly, but I have a sick team of people who've been working with me for like 13 years, 10 years, 8 years. So like I feel very lucky to have the hardcore team I have. Growth for me is measured by impact, not head count. And the true definition of scale actually is more money, less people, which is a funny thing people don't know. That's the true definition of what scale means.
Yeah.
So I feel like I may continue to scale by way of the number of clients that I work with, maybe. But I'm having such a laugh right now, and I feel so at home in it. I can't imagine it changing. So if I did nothing else for the rest of my time but do marketing communications for brands and people that I love, and a little music over here and a little volunteering here. Like, I mean, if that's what life is for the next 50 years, I'll feel very blessed, that's for sure.
Well, Donnie, you know what? As we said, the theme is we've known each other, but we really haven't known each other. And this 58 minutes of time we've spent together has given me an appreciation for you. That keep the community, you're helping the community be strong, and just keep doing what you're doing.
And I say that back to you. You're helping us tell our stories and helping us all feel seen in all the hard efforts that we're all trying to pull off here in all the Gale Force Wins and beyond. So keep up the good work, because we love the opportunity.
Well, I thank you. Thanks for joining us, and tune in, like, share, do whatever. Keep this going. Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Wins. That's Gale Force Wins, WINS.com.